Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the Helping Friendly podcast. I'm Megan. I'm here with the whole gang today. We've got Brian, Jonathan, and RJ. And we have a special guest today. Ryan Storm is going to join us today.
Wow.
It's very exciting.
Wow.
I know. It's very exciting. He's back from camp. This has got to be one of his first public appearances since being back from camp, right?
I don't know. I hear he's heavily in demand.
It's true.
He
So
is.
he's joining us here today, which is very exciting. And we better get to the meat of the show pretty quickly today because, Brian, do you have some bad reviews for us?
I've got a bad review to read.
Okay.
This is a 1-star review that we received recently, and we
You
love.
brought bad reviews?
He brought bad
I
reviews.
did. Hold on, how does Trey do it? He's like eating like the cheese off of his thumb. He's like
From
laughing.
the microwave.
Fishman's talking about high price hookers and in Manhattan. So I want to read this for you all because we here at the Helping Friendly podcast, we dedicate ourselves on a daily basis to a regiment to try to be the best podcasters in the niche fish podcasting land, which is deep and vast. And there's a lot that we have to compete against. So we apologize if we ever come up short. And we want to read for you this review that tells us that we need to learn how to captivate. 15 minutes in, not one thoughtful comment has been made. Talking about being tired and just bantering for 15 minutes. I can't do it. I so wanted to hear the AC recap. Low production value, need training on how to captivate and entertain listeners, not themselves. So,
can I respond to this, Brian? Or you go first. But
I also want to respond.
Get in line to respond
after RJ.
I just want to say,
RJ.
the Grateful Dead received some bad reviews too, and so I feel like we're in a pretty good camp here right now. But if someone out there wants to learn how to teach us how to captivate, we are here. We will be. You can be our spirit guide. RJ.
We're open.
I just want to say that if you haven't listened to the Helping Friendly podcast for the past 9.5 years, then you won't know that what we do is we talk nonsense, and then sometimes we talk about fish, and that's the show. That's how it's been since the beginning. And I would say that the production value has gotten slightly better since 2013. And I don't think we should
slightly.
We're on an upward trajectory. We're on an upward trajectory. That's what we're saying.
Anyone who's ever listened to the show knows that all we do is talk nonsense and sometimes about fish. That's all. Jonathan, what do you say?
I just love that we have a respectfully, I love y'all's insight. It's not even an enthusiastic. Thank you so much. Respectfully disagree with the commenter. Love y'all's insight. That's it right there.
I have multiple points
awesome.
to make. First of all,
let's hear it.
As RJ said, we have improved our technical sound things substantially. Also, I'm a good word talker. Additionally, I don't know where that came from. Being on target, staying on target is exactly the opposite of what I'm here for. So I take personal responsibility for this failure, this listener. However, there is a fast forward button on your podcast playing app. Feel free to go bip, bip, bip a couple times if we're not getting to the point, because we may not get to the point for a minute. And, as a wise man once said, the journey is the prize.
Megan,
we're not really here to tell you what to think about AC. We're here to tell you what we think about AC. And one of the things we may have thought is that we were tired.
I was really tired after AC. I just have to say that. And that's because I was working really hard at AC to deliver HFPod live events. Yeah. And
Incredible.
I was partying. So, yeah.
I was partying.
Sorry for partying.
So I'm sorry. Megan, as the newest member of HFPod, what do you have to say for yourself for not being captivating?
Honestly, that one kind of hits hard. I feel like my whole life
I can't stand
really
for this. Megan is the captivating
to
one.
be captivating.
We're just here, and then there's Megan. That's
I love
it.
you, Jonathan.
And Megan is.
It's true.
I've been trying my whole life. I feel like I've really failed. So I've got to work on it. Clearly, that BFA in acting did me no luck. I guess I'm gonna try harder. I'm gonna think about it and try harder.
On this note, two things. One, if you want to help us improve, we are here for your services. We can't pay you any money, but we will provide some bad takes for you to laugh at in replacement for you to make us more compelling and captivating. And also, this is a great opportunity to encourage you to subscribe to Osiris Media on Apple Podcasts, where you can hear bonus content where not only do we talk some fish, but we also talk about meaningless other anecdotes like what shirts are we wearing, what sandwiches have we eaten, and occasionally planning for the next week that we'll talk about what books we're reading, but never talking about the books. Those are the things that you.
I'm ready.
Those
I'm
of
ready.
you who are
I'm ready
here
to talk
for
about books
the
too.
meandering content and the casual conversation and the tangents, you are our target audience for the subscription type thing, the bonus episodes, because you know who we really are, what we really like to do, and sometimes it is talk about fish.
I haven't even done my treatise on Waterloo, I don't think. Or maybe I did in a previous episode, but that's coming soon too.
I don't think so, but I'm looking forward to that.
I'm down.
I also just want to say that there is a bullet point in our outline that never goes away. It's there copied into every new outline that simply says general discourse about the topic of the day plus shooting the shit. This is our general discourse about the topic of
outline.
the day plus shooting the
the
shit
outline.
segment. So I'm sorry it's in the outline. It's there.
So the
I've
people
always
who are
thought people wanted
listening
to get to know us.
and people who like us, you have to leave at least, we need 5 positive reviews to counter
Yeah.
that 1 negative review. So you guys help us out.
Please.
Yeah, please help us out. And the part of the podcast that everyone loves the most, which is our ad break, is next. So who wants to tell us about Sunset Lake CBD?
I think it should be Jonathan. He does a good job
Okay.
telling us about Sunset Lake CBD.
I guess I'll go off mute then. Sunset Lake CBD's line of smokable hemp products for the old deadhead or young fish fan searching for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without the paranoid and anxious side effects. With 9 different strains from this year's harvest, there is something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show, and Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All of the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. Even better, Sunset Lake CBD's farm-to-table approach gets you great pricing on premium CBD flower by shipping directly from their farm to your door. This is the point in which I will now ask Brian, will there be Sunset Lake CBD on hand, or do I need to fly in my own when I come out for Dick's this week?
I am looking right now at a box about yay big
Wow.
that contains Sunset Lake CBD products. I am
we will
so
be
excited
relaxing
for
and
it.
enjoying it after the show.
After the show, on the back patio or around a fire, depending on how we're feeling after each night, we will be having some Sunset Lake CBD and some jams, some serious jams.
I'm really looking forward to
I
all of
can't
that,
believe
and I
it's
will
Dick's
keep this
week.
here. I know, right?
can't
I'm going to keep this here for when I get home. And everybody else out there, so you can recreate the experience that Brian just described, you can check out Sunset Lake at www.sunsetlakecbd.com and use coupon code HFPod for 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown. You will have to provide your own jams, I'm afraid.
But we will have a
That seems
playlist,
fair.
which I will tell you about here shortly. But I also should tell you about, if you find us compelling and entertaining, and you like dogs and jams, dogs not included, asterisk, potentially not included, you should come to the Larimer Lounge on Wednesday, August 31st. This Wednesday, like 2 days from today, for music and conversation featuring Taper's Choice. You see him on the screen right below me. Mr. Jonathan Hart and I will be interviewing the esteemed members of Taper's Choice and asking such questions like, are you the greatest jam band that has ever existed? Are there any other good jam bands that you recommend, or should we just listen to Taper's Choice? And will tonight's show pass the Dave test? These are going to be very, very important and essential questions. You can still get some tickets, but they are going mighty fast. I got an update today and went, woo! I don't know what I'm gonna do in front of all those people. I don't know. I'm gonna kind of freak out, but it's gonna be awesome at the same time because I'm gonna have Jonathan Hart there and some Sunset Lake CBD.
I get you covered, man.
You got me, and we got jams. So get your tickets today. OsirisPod.com/Denver. Thank you, Scott. /Denver. Get your tickets now. We will see you on Wednesday. The only Night .0 in town. The only one. And we also want to tell you about HFPod from the Dick slot. There's a lot to cover here, so just bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible so we can get to the captivating content. But I will say that from Thursday, September 1st through Sunday, September 4th, we will be on lot. Jonathan and I, Mr. Matt Dwyer will be there. We've got a chair pulled up for Mr. Brad Tenbrook. We've got a bunch of special guests. We've got the Mockingbird Foundation. We've got Trey's Guitar Rig. We've got Tom freaking Marshall. Everybody should be more excited when I say that again. Let's do it one more time. Tom freaking Marshall.
Oh my God.
I'm just sad I'm not going to be there. I'm over this.
Me too. Like
I'm
hearing
just
about it
staying
every
on mute
week
so I
is
don't
just
interrupt.
so crushing. It's just so crushing.
I'm really
Sorry,
sad you
Brad.
guys aren't going to be there, but we will be there with Cannabis Depot, who is Colorado's favorite dispensary. They offer flower from the top growers in the state. You can visit them in Pueblo, West Pueblo, and check out their new store that's opening in Boulder. Visit them online at cannabisdepotco.com. And just for a final preview of what we're going to be doing, Thursday, we're going to have the gang from Wook Plus with us, as well as Benji Iceland, to do a big breakdown of Fish's 10 plus years history at Dick's and what that venue has meant to them. Friday, as I noted, Ryan Chicheri of Trey's Guitar Rig is going to be focusing on Trey's whammy pedal and what that has done to Fish's jamming over the last 25 years. Saturday, we've got the Mockingbird Foundation joining us for a Dick's and Philosophy podcast. And on Sunday, we'll be joined by Mr. Tommy G. Marshall, Soft G, who will be hanging with us to talk Fish's Summer 2022 tour, as well as he's going to give us some insight into his last songwriting session with Mr. Trey Anastasio, the bad lieutenant himself. We'll be on lot. You know the area. Shakedown. There's like 4 or 5 rows. Tons of stuff happening. I can't tell you exactly the spot we're going to be in, but you'll know when you see us there on day one. Come and hang with us. It's going to be a ton of fun. Should we get to the
Wow.
compelling content?
Yeah, let's just
Wow.
bring Ryan in. We're hitting under 15 minutes, and I feel really good about that.
I'm already captivated.
Under
He's
15
in.
is pretty good.
He's
Right?
in.
Actually, under barely under
I would say
13.
really, really compelling intro and or shooting the shit, though. I will say that was great to listen
Thank
to
you, Ryan.
backstage.
Thanks,
I
Ryan.
feel
It's
like
on our
that's
outline,
like-
so we have
Welcome.
to do it, And so if you're going to do it, I think we do it pretty well.
I feel like it's like the going clear segment of podcasting. Like if you can master the bullshitting before the actual content,
Yeah.
you've gone clear. You've reached like level 5 or whatever L. Ron Hubbard would have us believe we need to get to finally make it as podcasters. We're doing everything we can, Ron.
Yeah, we did it. We did a live segment yesterday talking about Goose Show the other night, and I think we spent the first 15 minutes just kind of shit talking each other about our fantasy Goose scores. So it's
Outstanding.
There you go. You're an expert
pretty good.
podcaster.
pretty good.
On Broke
mean,
Down
if-
Pod,
if-
I just kind of try to sprint, and if my like recording exceeds 4 minutes, then I'm like, I'm talking too slow.
I mean, if you're like coming to listen to a podcast and you don't expect people to just talk nonsense, then I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
What are you doing?
Go to radio.
Go to
man.
NPR.
I think I said to
Yeah.
Brian the other day, I was listening to a 36 from the Vault episode, and I got an hour in, and they hadn't started talking about the show yet.
Masters.
I was like, this is
Masterful.
great. It's great.
Well, thank you to our reviewer out there who gave us so much content for today. We hope that it was captivating for you
Oh, yeah.
and only you. Ryan, while you're just joining us here, can you give the people out there, they know who you are because you're everywhere, but can you just give us a quick rundown of where we can find you on the socials, on the podcasting before we dive into Dick's 2012?
Absolutely. Thank you. So you can find me on socials at Rye_storm. My podcast, we move through stormy weather, which is kind of my fish podcast, at least, is kind of in an inconsistent zone right now, but you can find that at Stormy Podcast. And where most of my content is coming out right now is at AAT Goose Pod. Always almost there. We have started doing just kind of like what you guys do, the day after every Goose show, a live segment recapping it. We are recording tonight our big summer tour recap episode, which will be out later this week, which is very exciting. But check that out. Always almost there wherever you get your podcasts. As well, I have a blog which you can find at ryanstorm.substack.com, where I do show reviews, jam breakdowns, etc. Lots of good stuff like that. I have a merch store as well, which you can find via my socials. The link is in various bios, I believe. But I just debuted a cool shirt design for the upcoming Tab and Goose tour.
I love that. It's really cool.
Check out. Thank you.
We didn't
Yeah.
even
I'm gonna
mention
check
our
that out.
merch store. We have a merch
we have a
store
merch
too,
store?
guys.
There's a merch store?
So good at this.
Oh God, we're really good.
9.5 years?
One of these days we'll get the hang of it.
You're
Mhm.
not gonna be able to find it though, because it doesn't. I'm not gonna tell you where it is. Ryan, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on again. It was a long summer without being on HFPod, and I was sad to have to miss the last 2012 episode in June.
But you were here for all the others, which was really
Yes.
fun. Yeah,
And
and we got to talk about your first show, which was super awesome.
We did. That's true.
Yeah.
Now
So
we get
now
to
you're
talk
here, and
about
we're here to talk about
Brian's
Dick.
insane attendance bias.
This is
Yeah.
just, I'm going to just,
Not
I
that it's invalid.
I gushed
but-
all last week when we talked Magnaball, and now
Mhm.
I'm just going to gush today when we talk Dick's 2012. And next week, we're going to talk about weekend 2 of the Baker's Dozen, so I can do it all over again. And then we're going to celebrate
Mm.
Chula Vista for about 2 months. No, we're not going to do any of that. But we are going to talk about
which
Dick's
Chula
2012.
Vista year is this?
Last year.
Can I join in on that celebrating?
You can come back for that. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
1 year anniversary of
We'll
Chula
be-
Vista.
Gotta
Let's
get by
just
the programmers
sit there with
first.
his jaws on the
Yeah.
on our-
you
on our floor.
said 2 months, so we will be live for 60 days straight. Brian and I just listening to Chula on repeat.
over and over and over again. That tube, man.
That sounds about right.
Should we, Meg, set the table of where we've been in 2012 as we move into the Dick's 2012 run?
Yeah. Do you want to kind of give the context of what we've done so far this year?
Yeah, so as we talked about, we had Ryan on twice in the springtime to break down the June-July run, and then we did an independent run breakdown of the August run. I think RJ, you were there for that. What we kind of came to the conclusion of over those 3 episodes was Dick's 2012 Fish. It was kind of a breakthrough year for the band in terms of they really expanded the song catalog. There were a ton of rarities that were played in June. But what really piqued our interest in various points throughout the year was this combination of really thoughtful and engaging improvisation and really narrative second sets in particular that showcased the band kind of approaching their shows and their music in a very different way. And I would say going into Dick's 2012, which was my first time at Dick's, I kind of already was on a high about the overall year. I saw a couple solid and then a very good show at Alpine Valley at the end of June and early July. I personally thought Bader Field, Cincinnati,
Blossom.
Long Beach, Blossom, yes, of course, Blossom, Long Beach, San Francisco Night 3, and St. Louis were just standout shows that were above and beyond what we'd heard in a lot of cases in the previous few years of 3.0. And kind of coming to this, the band already seemed to be on a high, but as we're going to talk about today, in my humble opinion, I think the group might agree with this, but maybe not. And if they don't, that'll be very interesting. In my humble opinion, they take a step up in a way that we hadn't heard them take a step up at all throughout the 3.0 era when they finished up here at Dick's 2012.
Yeah, the
They're
thing that
missing
stands
things.
out to me is just the consistency of the 3 nights. Like, they all have pretty incredible playing and just memorable moments, and that kind of 3-night consistency is pretty incredible in 2012.
Well, I think you're right, Megan. But there's also the last 2 nights are really, the first sets are just sort of like really meandering and kind of long, and like a bunch of songs that are like 3 minutes long, and you're like, what the hell is happening here? But then the second sets are just like outrageous.
Incredible.
It's a real night and day sort of thing. I don't know. I
Mhm.
guess
There
that
are
was that the
It's
lot
almost
of
era?
like the
songs.
first sets. Yeah, it's almost like the first sets are like what they were doing earlier in the summer, just playing a lot
Yeah.
out of their catalog, and the second
Yeah.
sets are like the best of what they did all summer. It's weird.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, before RJ said that, I was gonna say like the consistency is there jamming wise, but there is obviously a pretty large gap in terms of full show quality between 831 and then the other 2 nights.
Agree.
Obviously, yeah. Oh, you think
Yes.
so, Brian? You haven't
I would
mentioned.
agree.
But yeah,
Can we use the word
obviously
drop off?
I think well, I think the big tentpole jams from the second 2 nights, Sand and Light, in my opinion, are above anything played on the first night. But as a full show, the first night wins pretty handily, in my case, or in my books.
I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
Yeah.
say, as the sort of, it's funny, I've missed all of these 2012 episodes they've done this year, and I took 2012 off. I saw them one show in summer 2011 and didn't see Fish again until Hampton 2013. I was
Wow.
just
Good comeback.
not feeling it. Well, when they announced Hampton, I was like, well, of course I'm going to go to Hampton. But some of the things I'd heard this summer in 2013 also motivated me. But I did listen. I listened along the way the whole time. I just wasn't
Mhm.
going. I wasn't putting the effort into,
Got it.
you're not having fun. You should take a break. So I've given that advice to others, and I took it, and
Mhm.
it paid off. But these shows do show, I think, what Brian is getting at here, which is that they raised the bar a little for themselves when they came into Dick's. And the first night is really strong. There's good jams, crazy theme. What are themes? That's weird. And then and yeah, good jams to follow the remaining nights, but really songy first sets.
Yeah, and Brian made a really good point about your kind of fatigue and taking the year off in one of the earlier episodes, where he was like, at the end of 2012, like with the way that MSG run went, where it was just not good, like there were a lot of people worried about the future of the band, and so I think you're definitely not the only one who went into 2012 a little bit like, well, I'll watch, but I'm not really going to travel across the country to see them right now, and I think they definitely upended that a little bit throughout the summer of 2012. But I think it would take until fall 2013 before they were really delivering on that super consistent basis again. But yeah, it's a good point and a good perspective to have, especially looking at this year as a whole.
Well, and you just gave a preview to our next year content when we celebrate 10 years of 2013, and we talk about the
Ooh.
expectations around what they did at
Mm.
Dick's 2012 and parts of MSG 2012 and how that bled into the summer. But we'll get to that in about 10 months' time. But it's
Or so.
it's good because this part of this run and this weekend is that it renewed a lot of people's interest in the band and allowed a
Mhm.
lot of people for the very first time, like there was
Mhm.
this growth throughout 3.0 of, okay, they're back, I don't care what they play, I just want Fish back in my life. And that lasted about 15 minutes, and then people started being like, what the fuck, when are they gonna fucking jam? And then that came back, and that started like creeping in, and there was this like tension throughout 09 and 10 that, to your point, in 2011 kind of turned to some significant negativity going into 2012. Part of the challenge of this run was that it reasserted that, okay, they can do everything that we thought that they could do before and we thought it was lost. Now let's see you do that every single night. And that has been the ongoing challenge of no, that's just not how it works. And that's not part of the journey. So we'll talk about all that going forward, but this is kind of that crux of where they were at.
This show also has all the things that make like the classic Fish shows amazing. They've got like the gag, the joy, the gratitude, the silliness, and the great jams. I think that like that is kind of like taking the best parts of what they did this summer and putting it all into one show in a way that's super exciting. It was so fun to listen back to this show.
If only they could have found another song that started with E. Yeah, I said that.
Interesting.
You don't love
it's-
Emotional
it's-
Rescue?
I mean, it's not
I
their best
think
cover.
that song should be stricken from. Even the Stones should never have done it. Like it's not really a good song.
That's crazy.
Too bad.
Yeah,
Too bad
very
Trey
crazy.
didn't write
Come on,
Everything's
it's
Right
hilarious.
5 years earlier.
That is some crazy talk.
Sleeping Monkey is hilarious.
I think it's for the shtick of Mike singing falsetto.
Yeah.
The 97
Oh, I
versions
know
were-
why they
were-
do it. I doesn't
the-
mean
the-
I'm there
I think
for
the
it.
97 versions have allowed it to exist forever. Just on the
That's fair.
strength of the two.
I
amazing bands
would
that are-
argue that that's not a good reason, but there are much better things from 1997, like all of the things.
Oh my gosh.
This
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
compelling argument for
This is a tangent.
Soul
Sorry,
Planet's
this is my-
existence or not.
No, it would
we
be
get
it would
to
be
that when
Everything's
we
Right because
celebrate.
that starts with E.
That
Right,
didn't
we
exist
needed
at
that.
this time,
Right.
I said it's too bad Trey didn't write it 5 years earlier. Then we could have had that in
Yeah.
this slot.
Would have been.
Here's a
great.
really interesting comment just based on what we've been talking about here, and I think this is a good way to get back to the show. And we'll get to Emotional Rescue
Thank
in
you.
a set or two. The Dick's Bar and Standard was first raised and set at the Sunday 2011 show, second set. The Guy Forget set. That's when Dick's became Dick's. 2012 night one is the continuation of that vibe. Just to add a little bit more context, I have a very specific memory of them announcing the Dick's 2011 run and on Fantasy Tour, which was a lovely little website that I used to frequent a lot around this point in
Yeah.
time. If you haven't checked it out, I would say
Don't.
just stay away for now. But it was a great cesspool in 2012. I loved it. There was a video that someone made that was driving on I-76 through Commerce City, Colorado to Dick's. And Jonathan's going to experience this in about 4 days, but you just pass by a ton of factories and a ton of feed farms, and it smells bad, and there's like fire everywhere, and there's steel. It's like the worst part of Denver that you drive through to get to Dick's. And they set it to like, I've been everywhere. And it was this like tourism video about how great Commerce City, Colorado is. And so going into 2011, nobody had any expectations that this run was going to be good. It was the first time they played a Labor Day run ever. And it was like in this soccer stadium. And then they came out, they played the S show. The Saturday night show is deeply underrated. That tweezer is amazing. And then to Glenn Russell's point, the Sunday night show was absolutely just mind-blowing for the era. All the more reason why MSG 2011 was so bizarre in its, tepidness. But yes, as to his point, when they came out on 8/31/2012, it was like they felt the vibes of a year earlier and just carried it over almost immediately.
It's so
I mean,
exciting
yeah,
to think about them setting up like a residency at a new place and it being a place that really inspires them.
Yeah.
And that was clear right off the bat.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like we're at a point where the idea of like a new tradition in 2012 was not something people thought about. And now 10 years later, there's no way to even consider Fish without the Dick's weekend. Like, I don't know what's going to happen when they announce their first summer tour and are like, sorry, no Dick's this year.
I don't
Like
think
that's going to happen at some point.
Heads
And it's
will
going
Why
to
do
be
you?
so
Anarchy.
bad.
Yeah, Billy Joel's gonna book Dick's for Labor Day weekend in like 2025 before Fish can get a hold on
just to fuck with them.
it.
Just to fuck with
just
them.
to just
I
to
hope
assert
that
his dominance.
happens. I just want to see those melts.
That would be
That sounds great.
that would be funny. That'd be funny.
I'm gonna send
Um,
an email to Billy right now.
Hey, I got an idea.
So-
yeah, can you get banners at Dick's? Is that a thing?
Just get him to paint it in the grass.
Definitely can.
But
Should
talking
we
about
jump
the show,
into? Yeah, should we jump into 8/31?
Let's do it.
I was gonna
2012 here?
say
We're 30 minutes in and we still haven't even talked about the show.
hey,
person's probably
29
So
minutes.
captivating.
29. We're getting in under half an hour.
We're
It's
getting
true.
there.
So I mean, they come out swinging with First Tube. That's like there's not an opener that I think pumps a crowd up more, especially opening up a 3-night run like that. Like I think that was a great call. And also listening back to this, I was like, oh yeah, That's how fast they used to play in 2012. Like it's a lot faster than they play now.
Yeah, there's a lot of
It's-
speed in this set. I think, just to set the table here. So this set is First Tube, Uncle Pen, Carini, Kill Devil Falls, You Enjoy Myself, Ocelot, Undermine. What does that spell, RJ?
I don't know. I've never been very good at spelling.
Fuck you, RJ.
Fuck
That's
you.
that's very rude.
Wow,
The guest
Ryan.
said
You're a
that?
guest here.
God.
Holy shit.
It's a family
I gotta
show,
say-
You
man.
have been at camp this summer. You need to wash your mouth out.
I
gotta
gotta
say
to
Ryan's
put an
point
E
earlier,
next to this now.
the crowd during First Tube though is really like amped. I guess my question about it is like, is it possible to know that the show is going to be that it's going to be a special kind of run, or maybe it's because of the 2011 shows that you talked about, but you can just
I
tell
think
the
that's
crowd
it.
from the beginning is just going nuts. They're like so excited, and it's just, I don't know, it's really great. But I've noticed that it was like, it seemed a little more crazy than usual. Do you guys notice that, or is that just me?
It's funny how you can hear the audience on
Mhm.
the live fish recordings enough to know, like, they're pumped, and later on you can tell that they know what's happening, like
Mhm.
some combination of Twitter and other set listing, and people are ready for it. I thought this first tube as an opener, it stands a little bit different apart from your very standard first tube, which is most first tubes. It kind of stretches a tiny bit, and it's a good version, and they rip it, and it's a great start to the weekend.
Yeah, the place was going insane. Like every aspect of this show is like the bar for me for what is a great fish show, and part of it is an opener that may not be the most shocking opener, but is shocking enough that everyone kind of loses. Like everyone's excited the band's out on stage, but then they play a specific song. It's not a rarity, but it's just kind of in a weird spot. First Tube doesn't open a ton of shows, and when it does, it kind of punches you in the face. Not punch you in the eye, but just just like smacks you. And I just remember like this version was a blur, and throughout the entire first set there was a lot of these moments that were just like, I can't believe they're doing this right now.
I think it's a
Yeah.
message from the band too. They don't play a song like that to start out the show unless they're feeling really amped up. And I think knowing that they had the S show last year, the first night, the crowd's ready for a prank or a gag. So they're like, what are you going to do? And so it's an exciting moment. It's like any great fish show, the anticipation is super high. And they nail it. I mean, this set is so strong.
It's so good. This show is what like really kind of reignited my interest in fish, and probably what made me want to start this podcast. So that's cool for anyone who likes us, and for people who don't, sorry. But the Carini, I want to talk. Can I just talk about the Carini real quick? And we're gonna
Please.
debut a brand new feature on HFPod, which we actually debuted about 9.5 years ago, which is playing a little bit of
brand new
music
old feature?
during the show.
It's new.
I
It's
think
new for the live.
It's true.
Bringing it back.
I think the one of the themes musically is like there's these, throughout this whole set, there's these like driving jams, but they're really melodic, and I think the Undermine, is the example from this set, I think. But I just want to play this little riff that Trey starts playing in Carini and see how this lands with you guys. You guys ready? Look at this.
Yes.
Ready?
Wow.
That's just like this nice little floating, but then he hits the effect, and then it just starts like then it goes in a totally different direction. But I don't know. I really like that. I feel like maybe that kind of riff or something like it is what we hear like throughout that whole set in different places.
Yeah, I think
It's
the
a very
word
hopeful
floating.
sound.
I think the word floating is a really good descriptor for a lot of 2012 jamming, especially in this run. They get to that floaty major key space, whether it's driving or whether it's more of a mellow vibe. Like I think that's a theme that really comes through frequently in this year and this run. And this Carini is also really cool because at this time, while it had shown up a couple of times earlier in the year, first set jamming is not really a thing. Like in 2012, like this was a big deal. Now, if we get a 20-minute song in the first set, it's like, okay, they got a 20-minute song. But it's a big deal for this 13-minute Carini, and to go to the depth that it did. So not only is it an awesome jam, but it has a lot of significance as well.
Yeah, and it absolutely does. I mean, this was something that was almost unheard of at this point in time. And I remember like in the moment, like having to kind of stop myself and be like, they're jamming in the first set off of Carini. Like, what the hell is happening? Like, get a hold of yourself. Carini had this kind of rebirth in 2010, and there were these versions throughout 2010 and 2011 that never really jammed. They always kind of got into like the 8-9 minute mark, but they definitely left Carini proper and they moved into a different space. And the Tahoe version, the Atlantic City 2010 version, there's a great one from summer 2011 that I'm blanking on right now. I apologize. There's a great one from MSG 2011. And then there were a couple really good ones throughout the summer of 2012. But this version really kind of took all of those and kind of, distilled it down into the jamming style of where the band was at this point in time. And it just was shocking to see them at this moment just throw themselves into jamming. And initially I was just like, okay, this is the peak of how excited they are to be back at Dick's. Now in hindsight, you realize, well, they needed to fit all of this music into 12 songs, to actually like fill up an entire show. The entire show is like 15 songs total. And having this Carini kind of set the table of like, we're going to jam a ton tonight, really like showcase where the band was at.
I think that the song totals is important here because we were talking earlier about how some of the other first sets are very songy. There are like 13 songs in at least one of these other first sets, which is as many as we have in this whole show. But I digress. Great jamming. And can I jump ahead to the Undermined?
Yeah, but
Yes.
because Jonathan, before you do,
Go
can I
ahead.
ask you a question? Is this the first show of 2012 or maybe of 3.0 where the first set was better than the second set? Are there other examples of this in 3.0 up to this point?
Are we saying that as a thing? I mean, to answer
I
that
would
question,
agree.
I have to
Yeah.
agree with you.
I think it's better. Well, yeah, if you don't, that's fine. But
I'm going to throw
you
one
do-
alternative back at you.
I mean, there are some really good moments in that second set.
There are, but I agree that this first set is better. Just it's just a compact piece. 7-3-11 would be the other show I would challenge you with.
Yes.
That first set is just
100%.
like, oh my god, what are you guys
Like an
doing?
hour and
Come out
40
with a sword
minutes.
jam. Yeah. There's a jammed out Destiny Unbound and a jammed out Mound. Like, come on. Anyway, go on.
Mhm.
Also my favorite Reba. Anyway.
There you go. See, I'm not the guy to answer that. As far as I'm concerned, this was 3.0 was ups and downs, and I don't have high highlights until really right about here, and then again starting the following summer in my personal catalog of things I care about. But and have
So let's
chosen
talk
to
about this
remember.
Undermined.
Undermined is wow. So this is the longest Undermined still to date. And they had jammed it out earlier in the summer, St. Louis, but it was really tight and short. Other long version preceded in Chicago in 2011 apparently. But
Yes.
I'll admit to reading that I don't remember that
You
version.
should listen.
But
You'll
But this
like
one
it.
is
It's
sorry.
the Elements show. It was the Elements show.
Yeah.
You
The
should
Elements
check that out.
set where
Yes,
Trey
I remember that
diverted from the
exists,
theme.
but but I would never have pulled it out of the date out of my head. But this one is outstanding. I was driving and listening to this the other day, and I knew it was good. I remembered that it was good. This is the Dick's Undermine, right? And absolutely outstanding. Really stands up even today, given all of the other jamming that they've done since in 3 and 4.0 so far. Great version.
I mean, this
pure
is how you
joy.
close
Pretty
a set.
amazing.
Just
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
jam beat. And
That's
hose,
pretty
like
amazing.
you leave people like running out of there, and you just spelled "fuck you." So it's just such a funny thing. It's so good,
I
and
do
everybody's
want to
pointing at
say,
you.
I think this is and Mike Lawn Memo made a good point.
Mhm.
The Enjoy Myself with Trey, and I mean, they're just, it's like, I was listening back to it, and I'm like, what is wrong with these people? You know, it's like
It's like pure
just
joy.
during the vocal jam, just such nonsense.
So
and it was
crass.
really fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Band doing that
yeah.
or the audience loving it?
Totally.
Both,
Yeah,
everything, the whole thing, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think this is, for me, this is like a top 10 probably Fish Jam of all time. Like it's just, it's so
Oh.
unique and it's so different. It's very, it's just compelling, and I just think it's really great. Brian and Ryan, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this, but can I play 30 seconds of this Undermine for those people who haven't heard it? I think we should do that.
You can always.
Let's
If
do
anyone
it.
hasn't heard it, they should be
the
arrested.
one dude.
Hey, for you who's listening who hasn't heard this, here you go. This is one of my favorite parts. I don't know about you guys, but this is where it kind of turns. Brian's bumping his fists. I mean, we could continue this for another, 7 minutes, but we can't.
This is
The
one of
Trey
those
thing
jams
is-
that I've listened to enough that I've memorized it.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of Linus and Lucy, just the kind of phrasing of what Trey's playing. It's not that, but it just reminds me of that. Anybody else get that?
Yeah, there's so
Yeah,
much of this like
interesting.
melodic repeating between them throughout this whole show and the whole run. It's really charming.
Ryan, what's your like, what do you think is going on here in this jam that makes it so memorable?
Yeah, so we hear this tone a lot. You'll hear more from Ryan on Friday when he talks about the whammy pedal, but that chirpy sound that Trey's using there is the whammy set to octave up, and just being left there, which is a sound he uses a lot, especially like he's really all over the late 90s as well. But I think it's generally not used in this context as much, which is just this soaring melodic mode, and I think it really, really works here. Page's piano also incredible in this jam. He's not using electric piano, not Whirly, not Rhodes, no synths. He's just on that grand piano, just playing chords mostly, and it's just incredible. Just a really, really amazing for Trey to solo on top of, and he leads some of the chord progressions in it, and it's just so uplifting, so amazing, and just it's so good.
Can I say a couple things about this jam?
What
We've
was it
been
like
hoping
being
you
there?
would, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to start with a personal story. It's quick, but I am not. I don't know if this is surprising or anything. I'm not a crier. Like it takes like an insane moment for me to like shed any tears, happy or sad. I've cried 3 times at a Fish show. Okay, and this was the first time during this jam. This
What are the other two?
like the 12/30/16 Ghost, and when they walked out on stage, the first Dick show after Curveball was supposed to happen, because it was like, holy fuck, like we could have lost, like it was like we almost lost him. It was crazy. So at this point, when I was at the show, I'd been listening to Fish for 11 years, and they were my favorite band, and I was collecting tapes, and I was like online talking about them. I'd seen about 30 shows. I had never seen like a Fish show. Like every single person I'd ever talked to had been to that like one show in like 95 or in 97 or in 2003. I saw a couple good shows in 2003, but like I didn't get it until later, because one of them was my first show. But like I hadn't felt like I'd seen like that show. And then this show happens, and this first set happens, and it was like every single moment, like what Memo's talking about, when they started yelling "We love dicks," and they started yelling "Trey loves dicks," and the audience started yelling back at the band, and they started yelling back at us, and then they like laughed about it. And this is after they've played this Carini that like was beautiful, and then they play this Undermine, and I just lost it. And I was just like, I remember having this thought like don't fucking play Golgi. Don't play character 0. Just like put your guitar down and walk off the stage. And they did it. And I got an immediate text message from my brother-in-law, excuse me. And it just said, fuck you, over and over again. And my first text back to him, no joke, I'm not going to hide from this. My first text back to him was, it was a great set, but why are you yelling at me? And then I pulled up the set on Twitter and I realized that they'd spelled out fuck you. So it all, like, the music was so insane that it completely went over my head. Two other very quick things. One, about 2 or 3 years later, I was with my very close friend John McGar, who is going to be here in Denver in 24 hours. Like, one of my 5 favorite people to listen to talk about fish with. And we were up at like 3 o'clock in the morning in his kitchen, and we put this jam on, and he goes, have you ever heard the woodblock? And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he was like, listen for it. And there's a moment as the jam is transitioning where Fishman just starts hitting the woodblock every so often, and it moves the band out there. And it's changed the way I've heard the jam ever since. And then finally,
I was grooving on that.
you were grooving on that.
Yes,
You
sounds
you would
so
hear
good.
that.
Jonathan's a big
and
woodblock guy.
Jonathan,
For
he's
sure.
bringing a woodblock.
True.
Denver.
It's the only thing that lets me down on that Ian's Farm 89 show. Forgot the woodblocks.
The last thing, Undermine season 3, we did, season 3, we talked about the Baker's Dozen, and I talked to Jake Cohen, one of the best people to listen to and talk about fish with on for that interview. We talked for like 3.5 hours, and he recreates the Undermine, like the exit melody. I highly recommend people go back and listen to it. We played it in, I think, episode 4, just to talk about the way the band was approaching jamming. This jam, to what everyone has said, like, this is one of the most important jams the band has ever played. It is one of the best jams that they've ever played, and is one of my favorite jams I've ever seen, heard, one of my favorite bits of music ever. So I'll shut up now. Thank you for letting me speak.
Brian, you can talk all you want about any jam. This is the place to do it.
This is it.
This is
You
literally
can't do
the
it
place
here.
to do it.
Should we get into the great set?
Can't do it here.
I think we should keep moving because we're going to be here for like 3 hours at this rate.
I don't think we have
Pretty
much to say about the first set.
Yeah.
I just remembered one more thing. I'm sorry. This is very, very short. My wife goes to the bathroom after this Undermine, and she's walking, and this girl comes up to her and goes, where do we go now? And my wife was like, what do you mean? And she was like, the show's over. Where do we go? And she was like, that was just the first set. And the girl was like, oh my God. Like, it was so good that people thought that this was the show.
That's great. I was going to say,
That's so
actually,
awesome.
before we go to the second set, Brian, your point about the first show you attended that was like that show, I'm curious what everyone's is. Like the first show you attended that you were like, oh, that was like that show. Mine was Chula last year.
Probably 12/30/97.
Oh, okay, Mrs. I've been seeing fish for a really long time, and I've seen high-profile shows.
It's just the facts, Ryan. Just the facts.
29.94.
Yeah,
That's
that'll
it.
do it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
I think Dayton 97 for me. That was it was just too much.
Yeah.
Even though the night
Brian-
before was maybe a better show, but still Dayton sticks out to me.
See, Brian, they have the 1.0 clout, but we know we're cooler.
This is my eternal challenge.
You're something. You're something.
Let's go to set 2 here. So we
Second
got
Do it.
Runaway Jim, Farmhouse, Alaska, Chalk Dust Torture, Emotional Rescue, and then we conclude with Fuck Your Face. I definitely thought for a second when they started Runaway Jim that they were spelling Fuck You Romney. And now in hindsight, like, that just wouldn't be that funny because, like, you know,
No.
that Romney was
That'd
just kind of
stand
like a guy in a cashmere sweater who just, like, you know, slicked his hair back, and, you know, it wouldn't have worked. But they come out and they play Runaway Jim. What did you guys think of the second set?
I love
Well, we're
it.
seeing, we're you know, as we saw Carini kind of start to bring back first set jamming in the first set, you know, Runaway Jim gets his first significant outing since 2.0, pretty much. I think there was one in 2010 or 11 that got a little bit out there, but this is the first really significant jammed ones. And Chalk Dust also, you know, this is kind of the beginning of Chalk Dust's 3.0 renaissance, if you will. You know, it was jammed out a handful of times 1.0 and 2.0, but was never really much of a huge jam vehicle outside of obviously like it, Camden 99. It was more like, oh, we're going to get 10 minutes of really high quality chalk dust right here. And so this is kind of the beginning of, where we'll start to see it really all over 2013 and 2014. It starts getting jammed out. And then we see now chalk dust gets jammed out more often than it doesn't, which I think is really cool, in a contrast from where it was 25 years ago when it was not getting jammed out very often. So, both of these also being unfinished, getting out there. Jim is a great contrast to the first set closing Undermine because it goes in a much of a darker tone, which is also abnormal for this run in 2012 as a whole, really, where there was a lot of really upbeat jamming. So that was cool. Really, really aggressive Mike in this jam, which
He's
we heard
it in this jam.
Yeah, we heard some assertive Trey in the first set. Like, it's really cool to hear Mike coming up here. And then Farmhouse in the middle there with its, crazy Space Jam off the back, kind of similar to what they did with Alaska on 11/30/19, where they just threw like, oh, we're done this, kind of breather song. Let's throw some space scuzz on the end of it just for fun. I think it's a really cool for, a mid-second set Farmhouse.
I think if you're going to play Farmhouse in Alaska and kind of, those spots in the second set, you got to put a little mustard on them. And I think that ending, Trey does that like really long sustained note. And then they're in this like super weird ambient space. And it sounds like they're going to go into 2001. And instead they go into Alaska. It's just like so funny. But I think it's like such a cool foreboding, like just one of those moments when you're listening, you're like, is this still Farmhouse? Which is like kind of a troll. It's great.
They totally
often
could
do
have
you
gone
get
into
to ask that
2001
question?
too, because that's
Exactly.
also, they could have done it.
And what'd you say,
It
Ryan? I
would have
missed
been
that.
They could have gone into 2001 there, because also Sprach, I'm not even going
It's
to
true.
try to pronounce the rest of it, but it
Zarathustra.
could have worked in that
It could have.
slot. But
It
they
would have
played
just been on
a lot
the
again
live
instead.
fish tracking as 2001, which wouldn't have worked out. I think that
Mhm.
Trey knew that. Trey knew what this would look like on live fish.
Or maybe they had 2001 on it as also, and then somebody was like, oh, like,
Just
people are going to
wait.
listen to this,
not
and
gonna
it's
show up
going to
right.
say, fuck your toos. Like,
Well,
What do you got? Oh, go ahead, RJ.
I just want to say that there's one thing that I wanted to just point, just the runaway Jim, because there's a point, and again, I'm gonna bring in advanced technology,
ooh.
because this happens several times in this show, and actually throughout the run, I think, where they maybe in previous years, like this would have gone away, like this jam, and it's like, I mean, you guys probably you know what this is like, but there's this point where like it's like, is the jam over? And it could have been over. This is 12 minutes in. I mean, it's really cool, right? But like, I think in 2010 or 2011, this like
gone.
transitions immediately
Yeah.
into something else.
Totally.
For sure.
And then they just take
They're
it
so
and they pick it back
patient.
up. But are they doing
Or
it? Is it
they
on
open it
purpose,
up
do you
to
think?
lose.
Oh, it's
They're doing
absolutely
it
on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's
As-
like, we're
think it
not
is.
letting this die.
I
Yeah,
think
as
I
it's
think
mentioned
what
earlier
makes
with
what makes this show so significant in that sense is that they gave themselves the parameters and said we have to fill time, and how are we going to fill time if we have this many songs we can play to spell out this gag? Well, we're going to fill time by playing music, and you're going to hear it in whenever we get to 9-1 in the light as well, because there's a specific moment in the light. I don't know if you have it queued up, but there is a moment in the light where the band they could very easily go into Boogie on Reggae Woman, and instead they push through and they get to a segment that they never would have gotten to in any other era. So I think to your question, RJ, I've always viewed this show as kind of like the practice room comes to the stage, and let's give ourselves a task and let's see what happens when we do it. They could have gotten into these jams and they could have sucked, and the show could have been terrible and it could have not flowed. Instead, they find these pockets of really fascinating music, and that has this additional effect on the band.
And Brian,
I'm
I think
gonna
you're right in the sense that there's, oh, sorry, Jonathan, this will be quick, that there's like a looseness and a joy and gratitude that I feel like they probably have during their practices that is very fun and silly and playful. And you can hear that it comes through so strongly in this show and it really stands out. And I think that's probably why it was such a great show too.
I want to speak to the haters out there because these jams are the things that really activated some of them because they would then come back and say, "Well, we know they can do it. Why don't they do it? Why didn't they do it?" And they then use that as a because they just want to complain as a tool with which to complain. Like the band can clearly jam in any song they want to jam, but why don't they do it? Well, they don't want to. Mostly because it pisses you off, I think. Love this Runaway Jim, and I just want to reiterate the
Me
point
too.
that Ryan made on the top is that this was a song that wasn't jamming. Like they had done like the jam chart lists one from 2011, but it's 8 minutes long, and then there's Coventry, and then there's Miami, and then there's Camden 2000. I mean, it's just not a song that was jamming. And then again, didn't make the jam chart well the next year, and then not again for 5 years. So it's really like we need more long runaway gyms, but we can always lean on this one because it's really good. Like 19 minutes long. It's the longest one since 2003 Miami. I mean, it's outstanding, and it's my favorite part of this set. Although I do like that spacey bit.
Good.
Yeah, it's so cool, that one bit. But I love this gym too. They also weren't playing a lot of 20-minute set two openers at this point, right? So
Yeah.
this was a big deal.
These are another like things that are coming back that
Hmm.
you would get a jam usually to open the second set, but it was never a jam that
Drowned.
went this far. A Drowned, a Rock and Roll, a
14,
Down with
15, yeah.
Disease. 14,
Down with Disease,
15 minutes. They'd go to a couple segments, and then they would go into kind of this space jam that you hear at the end of Farmhouse and would fade into a different song. And so there was then this like adverse joking aspect in Farmhouse where it was like you're playing Farmhouse and you're going to tack on an ambient jam and it's going to go into Alaska, but it's all part of this larger joke that you guys are playing on us.
Can I just say, just Chalk Dust Torture Jams, which is the next jam after that set. It's my favorite jam vehicle to hear after Tweezer. And this one started a long run of amazing Chalk Dust at Dick's. I think 2012, 2013, 2014, 2021. Maybe there are others. But it's just, it's so fun. 2013, I think, is my favorite of
So
those.
good.
But it's just cool that there's like some kind of thing where like it just feels right in that venue. I think that's maybe 2022 is the next one. Brian, what do you think?
2015 had a good one, but yeah, no, to your point, it was almost like a thing that you could set your watch to each year, similar to the gag on Friday night, that it eventually would kind of go away because all traditions are built to die. But yeah, it was kind of like after Dick's 2012, Chalk Dust Torture every single year seemed to have this like really significant moment in each of the, subsequent years. And then I think it was in 2016 that it just had kind of a standard moment. It's like, what the hell? Chalk Dust isn't going to jam at Dick's? Like all these sorts of things. This Chalk Dust,
Can I
go ahead.
No, I just want to answer the Incredible Perps question. Does Jim still hold the record for the longest song? And the answer is yes. The 11:29:97 is still the record for the longest song. But also, interestingly, in the the 10 all-time longest jams, Chalk Dust is not on that list. I mean, it's
The
Unbelievable.
longest Chalk Dust is Randall's, right?
Randall's
I
28
think
minutes.
That's right. Yeah.
28 is pretty good. That's a good one too.
Respectable,
good
you
jam.
know.
This podcast about Chalk Dust Torture has really taken a turn for the better, in my opinion.
I feel like we really
We
need
haven't
to
even
get
really
to
dug
9-1.
into my thoughts on Camden. But
I
we'll go on.
think
Should
I
we-
think Megan has a point. I think we should
Should
go
we
to
jump?
really
9-1.
Should we jump
moving.
to
Yeah.
because so the show ends
got it.
with Emotional Rescue, which is like the greatest cover of all time. Fuck Your Face to kind of put a cap on the show, and then Grind and Meat Stick because the entire existence of Fish is just one big Dick's joke. Ha ha ha.
Yep.
Let's go to
Ah.
September 1st.
Great
I can't
joke,
believe
Brad.
you don't. I still can't believe you don't love the Camden Jog Dust, Jonathan. I'm never going to understand that as long as
I mean, it's
live.
okay.
If I
But
live, if I
I'm
live
telling
longer
you,
than you,
years later,
Wait.
that was still not the highlight I had from that show.
Jonathan, I'm not the only one who doesn't think it's all it's
Oh my
everyone
God.
says it
Okay,
is.
okay, okay,
Oh,
okay,
God.
okay.
This
All
is
right.
really going off the rails.
We will be back
Nearly.
for a bonus episode
We'll
where
do
we
a
tell
side
Ryan
podcast
and
on that one
Jonathan
day.
how wrong they
Baker's
are about
dozen.
the chalk dust torture from Camden '99.
We're
I
right.
will
You're
September
on the
I'm
stage.
going to
1st.
talk to your family about this, Jonathan. I'm not done.
Oh,
I'm done.
God.
My family
Saturday
cares.
night.
Not at all.
No.
I distinctly remember having a morbid conversation with a Fish fan outside of Saturday night's show where both of us came to the conclusion that they just went too hard last night. The next two nights, there's no way that they could ever live up to this. And while they wouldn't play a better show, an hour into this podcast, we were here to say that there are some very, 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 very noteworthy moments in 9/1 2012. I'll just read the first set here really quick. Run Like an Antelope, which opened the show for the first time since January 26, 1990, 1,265 shows prior. Backwards on the Number Line because, hey, we played a big opener and now we're going to piss you all off and watch you dance and smile and hug each other. Tweezer and a Fluffhead, Roses, Funky Bitch, Moment Dance, When the Circus Comes, Theme from the Bottom, Golgi, Stealing Time from the Faulty Plan. RJ, do we have any clips to play from this set, or does anyone have like one thought that they want to put out about this set here before we go into set 2?
Really solid tweezer. Really, really solid tweezer.
Tweezer's really good. I think
And
it's
great
Yeah.
segue into
overshadowed.
Fluffhead.
And you can't
Mike
not
sounds
even
mess
jam
with
incredible.
charted.
Tweezer into Fluffhead.
Yeah, it's not even jam charted.
And I'll just say,
mean,
like,
in the
being in the
pantheon.
venue, up until Roses started, which is basically like 35, 40 minutes into the show, people were reacting in the same manner that they had the entire night before. So
Right.
the only real, like, quote, down part of this show is Roses through the end of the first set, which isn't even really down. It's all very well played.
It's
But it
just
was
the
the
first
only...
set.
It was just like the first 40 minutes, though, like it carried the same energy from the night before and made me realize, like, oh my God, can they just do this all weekend? But getting
I mean, Tweezer,
into
Fluffhead, and a perfectly played Fluffhead too. You can't complain about that.
absolutely,
It was pretty good. It's just there's a
Mhm.
lot of songs and like that after the Fluffhead, like Roses Are Free. Like that's one of the questions I have. I should ask Trey if I ever get a chance. Why would you play Roses Are Free for like 4 minutes? I mean, what's the point? 5 minutes, 6 minutes. If you're not going to jam
It's a
it,
cute
like
song.
it's-
I mean,
I mean,
Rosemont
Trey likes to play
2018
songs.
was good.
Also, the band just likes to play songs.
Yeah.
Sometimes not every song is going to be like a jam. Otherwise,
Boy, did they.
Well,
Wow.
Hey,
I'm
this is in 2012. In 2022, every song can be a jam.
that's a debatable
It's true.
topic, and
It's true.
we'll talk about this in our next bonus episode. Should every Fish song jam? I know where I vote.
Mm.
Do you know where you vote?
No.
Set 2. We have Golden Age, Prince Caspian, Light, Boogie On, The Wedge, The Horse, Silent in the Morning, Mike Song, No Quarter, Weekapog with an encore of Sleeping Monkey and Tweezer Reprise. What has everyone got? Thank
Yes,
you.
Lisa.
What has everyone got
Well,
as their
there's-
highlight of set 2?
Uh-huh.
Just
Jonathan,
a sneak peek. We have 2 clips that we'll have to play.
I think the
Yeah,
horse for
Jonathan.
me.
the horse. Yeah, that's the best one. Jonathan, I'm
Sounds
going
like
to queue up your highlight for you.
Oh, good. Well, let me. While you do that,
Yeah,
I will
please-
tell
please
everybody.
set it up.
It's
Set it
actually
up.
it's Prince Caspian. This Caspian is not super long, but it goes hard. It's a great energy
Totally.
in a Caspian, which you need to have in the second slot of set 2 if you're going to play it there, because there's always going to be somebody who's like, fuck Caspian, but they're
Fuck.
usually wrong. This one's good, and then it comes down into this really cool like space, which RJ is going to play for you in here in 1 second. That leads us to Light, and I love that.
This is so advanced. I can't believe we can do this on the internet. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
So trippy.
Them
2012
riding
lights.
out.
They're
Yeah,
so colorful. There's no movement.
It's them riding out that transitional space ambient jam again, as we talked about for 831.
Giving
Man,
it that room.
That's pretty
And
wild.
I advocated for this just, I think, last Monday. I would go for a whole set of that, but I don't think everybody would.
No, I
Brian
think
would
I'd go
love
for
it.
Give it to me.
I think this
I would
whole
agree.
first part is so incredible. Sorry, Brian, the Golden Age, Caspian Light, and Boogie On, because I mean, this light, we're obviously going to get into it, but I do think that this Caspian gets super rock and roll at the end. It's kind of like a little premonition of the Magnaball Caspian. It's like, this shit's going to be cool then, pretty soon. But the light, obviously, we have to talk about. I mean,
Eventually, you were going to
yes.
say.
Yeah. I mean, this is just, they move effortlessly into the jam. It's just, there's so much listening between them and echoing back. I think it's just groovy. It has so much diversity to it. And there's driving sense to it. Like, they're doing this thing that I kept hearing throughout, which is like they make something really beautiful and then they kind of deconstruct it. And now they do that and they turn it spacey and like synthy. But back then they're doing it and turning it into kind of like Plinko-ish. And it's a really, I think it's just incredible. At the end of it, it's super cinematic. I was listening to it and it sounds like you're like melting into this like field and it's just like this beautiful field of flowers. And then you see something like galloping across the field and you're like, is that thing, is it going to hurt me or is it going to like befriend me? And then it comes by and it like swoops you up on its horse and you're like galloping off. Like, it's just this is a journey, this light, and it's amazing. And I love it. And then what else is there to do after this? Just dance your ass off to Boogie On. So this is my highlight of the whole weekend. I wasn't supposed to give that away, sorry, but this whole segment is amazing.
That was
feel like
beautiful, Megan.
We need to pause right now and go very meta here. How the fuck do you not find this captivating? You reviewer out there.
With that,
Did you hear that fucking description? Did you hear that description?
Can we figure out can we figure out the email address of whoever wrote that bad review and like send them a clip of Megan doing that and be like, captivating?
Yeah,
Megan,
captivate this.
Guys.
They know who they are.
Megan's tryout video for HFPod last fall was her describing jams a la Greek mythology, and that was it right there.
Brian, don't tell at my secrets.
RJ, do you want to play, as we're now getting into the gallivanting off of a white horse in a field with the rain pouring down on us? Can you play for us a segment of the light to showcase the journey that we're on?
Yes.
I can.
That car honking.
That car one should have
19, right? 19 minutes.
Brooklyn. So brutal.
I think that's what you want, Ryan, right?
19 and a half.
Talk amongst yourselves.
So to preview this.
Hold on, shout out to Shermith here. I think Brian is the reviewer, and he sent it as a decoy to provide more controversy and discourse. Don't give away my secrets, dude.
That
would be like next level podcasting, yeah.
Okay, so I have 3 words here.
Set the context here.
Mercy, mercy, mercy. That's this chord. That's this progression that Paige starts going into. It's a Joe Zawinul song. I learned it on piano like 5 or 6 years ago, not having heard this jam. Then the first time I heard this jam, I was like, oh my God, I know that song. Like, it's very exciting for me. But I really love the progression, how it ties into this really uplifting jam here. But, play it. We haven't mentioned how good. We haven't mentioned yet how good Trey's tone is in 2012.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
And Brian, tell us how hard that rain was. You know it's bad when you can see it on the YouTube.
I don't want to interrupt you guys, but even though I'm not going to Dick's this weekend, I decided that if I start walking now, I might be able to make it. So I'm gonna drop off, and I'm gonna start walking to Colorado. And if you guys
They'll
see
see
me
you on
along
the walk.
I-70,
You see him.
just
Pick
just
him up.
wave. I'm gonna
Drop
get him
off
his
some
steps for the
Sunset Lake
year.
CBD for him on
It's
I-70.
kind of needed for
Thanks.
his feet.
Thank you, Ryan. Nice to see you guys.
Bye, RJ.
Thank you,
Thanks,
RJ.
I'm hitting the
RJ.
road. I'm hitting the road. I'm walking. Bye.
So I want to say two things really quick. One innocuous and slightly fun, but a sharp observational point. And then the other one is actually very intelligent. The first one, Trey's shirts in 2012 were just incredible. Like that flannel.
It's the flannel era.
It probably was like, I don't know, $150. Just looks really comfy. But like it was a reliability. He showed up in a flannel. You knew what he was going to wear every couple of nights. You got this rotation down. You kind of knew what he was going to feel like in that shirt based on how he felt in the previous one. I'd like to see the flannels come back. I feel there's too much unpredictability around what Trey wears on stage right now, and it throws me off.
Yeah, since the pandemic, it's been like a very high fashion thing. Like 2018, 2019, he had like, or 2017 really through 2019, he had like the red hoodie, the black t-shirt, the white long sleeve. I think like he had he had like a 5 or 6 episode 5 or 6 outfit rotation, and it was like, oh, it's a red hoodie night, it's gonna be good. Like,
look, you guys know what to expect from me. There's gonna be a collared shirt, and there's gonna be a collared shirt that's got long sleeves on it that's on top of it, and it's very comfortable.
And a hat.
And there's gonna be a hat, a various form of Cubs hat. You guys know what to think of me. When I start wearing a different set of clothes every single HFPod live, you know that we're doing well. The other thing I want to say, Mike Lawn Memo Minio is one of the greatest people on the face of the planet, in general, in the fish community, one of the greatest people to listen to, talk about fish with. He does an incredible job of communicating this band in a highly passionate, engaging, and communicative way. He said here this comment that I think is so astute. After the Albany 7 Below to Ghost, this light is the next turning point of jamming in this era. Number one, I agree completely with that. Number two, I think the one thing that separates this from it, and I think that it is one of the most important things about this jam, is 7 Below and Ghost are two songs from a different era of Fish that were played in early 3.0 around the time that Light is growing and blossoming as this really standout jam vehicle. And if you look at 2009, you've got the Gorge version, you've got from 2010, you have the Greek version, you have the Augusta version. 2011, there's a great version from Tahoe. And then you get into 2012, you get the excellent Burgettstown version. It's really like the song that like the band just grew with throughout 3.0. And it was their one new song that they could play and you knew was going to be on the level of Down Disease, on the level of Tweezer. One of the things that makes the Fuck Your Face shows so fascinating is the return of jamming, but a lot of that jamming comes from older songs that are being reborn. One thing that we did not expect in 2012 that is now in 2022 an expectation every time you go to a show is that a new song is going to dominate that show. You think about this summer with how many great Wave of Hopes there were, how many great Set Your Soul Frees there were, how many great Sigma Oasis. All of these songs to me, Oases, all of these songs to me are direct descendants of this version of Light. Because while there had been excellent versions of Light, the Augusta 2010 Light, 10/19 2010 is my personal favorite jam of that year. This jam takes the Fish song of early 3.0 and puts it on like a pedestal above everything else and showcases the way forward for this band through new material. Just a really stunning thing that they were able to do this, and a huge turning point for the band as they were going forward.
Yes.
So I got
Agreed.
Yes. I think the only other notable thing to say about this show is Fishman returned for the encore with a banana, causing Trey to fill time by remarking that Fish almost passed out from rocking so hard during the second set. Therefore, he was handed a banana
Yes.
backstage to revive him. Trey asked the crowd to picture Fish in a dress with a banana before performing Sleeping Monkey. I had never heard that kind of commentary before, and it was this realization that the band knew that like that light really took it out of them in the best way.
Yeah, but the set ends with this Mike's No Quarter Week pog that is awesome. Like
No
Great
Quarter's a
the
great-
version.
stuff at the
Yes.
beginning of the set
Oh.
is
Great.
high highs, but they're still they come in after the middle part and just kill it through that. It's not jam chart versions or whatever, but that stuff is really good. And
Agree.
Power.
And then
Yeah.
you hear
And-
the
No
no
Quarter's
quarter, I think,
great.
throughout the next night too. It influences some of the jamming the next night.
And this was something we all talked about via text. Like these first sets, they're just kind of their first sets, 9-1 and 9-2 in most cases. But to Jonathan's point, like that Mike song, it's that Mike's groove. It's not a long Mike's groove. Nothing's jammed out in the type 2 area. It's just really played well. And it's one of the things that when you go back and listen to these shows, it's worth listening to them all the way through, even if there's not like surprise moments everywhere because the band's just so good. Let's go to Sunday 9-2, last show of the run. Set 1, Cars, Trucks, Buses, AC/DC Bag, Down Disease, Bathtub Gin, Nelly Kane, Sample in a Jar, Back on the Train, Rift Free, Ride Captain Ride, Maze, Haley's Comet, 46 Days, and Possum. Pretty much the same exact amount of songs that they played all of one night on Friday.
Solid.
Anyone have anything
Jonathan's
in
face.
particular to say about this, or?
the Bag Disease is really good. It's not
Yeah.
super extended, but it's really good. And love a Nelly Kane anytime, every time.
Yeah.
So
It's 2012, so the Type 1 stuff is all great.
Yeah.
Like
there's nothing wrong with this set.
Mhm.
It's just not the second
it's a
set.
set. Yeah. The second
But then
set
they
is
make
a lot
up for it.
more.
And they
I
play,
mean,
like,
it's nothing you
such
have to
newer
make
stuff.
up for. It's just like
Yeah.
you get both. You get a songy set, and then you get
Mhm.
you get some jam.
Well,
Speaking of jam, the sand.
why don't we go into this? I'm going to try
Let's
to
just
do
do it.
what RJ did here. Give me
Oh,
one
can he
second.
do it?
Can you handle the technological power?
I have faith in you, Brian.
I'm hoping
It's a
I can.
great
Let's see
responsibility.
if we can do this. All right, so we're going to share. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the sand. So before we say, is there any context that anyone wants to give about this before we go ahead and play it here?
I think it'll set itself up if you
Yeah.
hit play.
Let's play it 1st.
Mhm.
That moment is so good. Oh my god. Oh,
I-
it's so good.
I think we need to get a clip of Brian doing that.
Trey just comes like creeping in with that riff, and it's just,
Yeah.
and they all hear it and just echo it back. It's so good, and the drone
good.
behind it. Oh,
So, does anybody else get like a waiting all night vibe on this bit?
Totally.
Thank you.
Sure.
I hadn't
I mean,
thought
it's
about
early, right?
that.
It's a year too early, but
Yeah, I mean, you get that a lot, and I think
Waiting all
I mean,
night.
it's not this isn't the only jam at Dick's that kind of has a premonition of a future song. Like today, I was listening to
Yeah.
the 8/29/14 Simple for its anniversary, and Trey basically writes "No Men" on the back half of that track.
Yeah.
And Fuego, the Fuego riff pops up in the Spack Piper from 04. Like these things
Right.
are everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to listen to for like
There's
that
only
song
so
won't
many
be
notes
written
on a
for another
guitar.
few years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, the
The
thing that
thing
stands out
that's-
to me in this jam is just, and the best jams of the whole weekend, is just that patience again to sit in a space that seems kind of directionless and listen to each other and just creep out. It just, the patience and the willingness to be in that space is just incredible and exciting.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but it's worth mentioning again. Prior to this weekend, they would have the end of that sand where they kind of did the sand type 1 jamming for 10 minutes and then they faded out. That would have been it. They would have gone into a different song. There'd been a cool 30 seconds tacked onto a really quality sand, and there would have been nothing else. They wait for like the extra 20 seconds and you hear it, Fishman's still playing that beat. And it's just waiting for one of them to take the lead, which was always a challenge for Fish until 1997. You know, Trey would try whatever he could to get Paige and Mike, especially from a melodic standpoint, to push the band forward jamming wise. Now, 15 years later at this point in time, they know how to do it. They just kind of had to redo it. They had to refigure out how to do it. And you hear it in this sand, the band figuring out it doesn't matter where we are, someone can push us into a new territory. And while they're not going to do that every single time, they're going to do it enough. And fast forwarding 4 months, we'll hear the exact same thing happen at the Tweezer from MSG 2012, which we'll talk about here later towards the end of this year. But it's just this, like, it's the patience, and it's this idea of like music being plucked out of the air when it's right. If you just allow yourself the patience to be there, to be present, it can happen.
And then they go into
Yeah.
Ghost.
Ooh.
We get
Yes.
a great
Third longest sand, by the way, according to fish.net. Third longest.
What are the
Deer
others?
Creek this year.
Big Cypress
Ah.
and Deer Creek from this year.
So
I
until
assume-
the beginning of this
Yes.
year, it was the longest sand ever.
And then the quadraphonic topplings got disallowed. And
Let's
And,
not get into that.
yeah.
Then we'll really never end this
No.
podcast.
We talked about that.
we don't have to,
No.
it doesn't affect this one. So
Mm-mm.
third longest at 23, almost 24 minutes. Crazy.
Really good, and
crazy.
You know, Fish.net
Yeah.
describes it in the jam chart entry most improvisational to date. You know, which I would kind of agree with. Like, yeah, people really love those 1999 sands, but I would take most of the jammed out versions in the modern era over those.
Totally.
Me
Because there's more happening. They're not just sitting on the sand groove for 20 minutes, as nice as that is to listen to sometimes.
It's true. And sand
Yeah,
was
more
one of
diverse.
the first like good vehicles, and I'm reminded of this by looking at the jam chart. One of the first things to really like go in 3.0 at Camden, that 2009.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great version.
I'd also like to shout out the Halloween 2014 version, which is
Very, very
really good and has a fantastic segue into Twee Prize.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This first segment of the second set, the whole second set to me flows perfectly.
Mhm.
This is, I would argue that this is the best set of the weekend overall. It's the type of set that you press play. Everything makes sense. Sand, Ghost, Piper all flow into each other really nicely. The Ghost has a great segment. The Piper, Jonathan was noting yesterday, it's 9 minutes long and it has this very cool final 3 minutes that are totally worth hearing. The 20 years later, really nicely placed on there. Just great new song to put in this spot, which then goes into Lizards. Lizards, when it's placed properly, Lizards anywhere, I should be clear,
It's Lizards.
is amazing. It's the Lizards. But like when placed properly, it almost feels like the band's kind of tipping their hat and saying, see, we think this is an important night too. Like we get this. And then to end with Hood. And the last song of a proper set of this weekend is Hood. And towards the end of it, if you listen, it's fading out. And Trey goes, I don't want to go home. And this band had been on the road essentially since early June and had seen themselves like play a tour that I would personally argue they hadn't played a tour this well, like this great, since summer of 2003 at this point in time.
Mhm.
They hadn't walked off stage like just this accomplished. And you could really get a sense. You get the sense 3 years later at Dick's 2015 when they do the thank you encore in the same sort of manner, that like this is a band that knows the same way that we do something really, really, like it's always special when they play a tour, but those really special tours, like we all feel it and we never want it to end. And you just want that moment in time to continue. And I think that they felt it walking off stage here.
I'd like to point out our friend Lawn Memo's comment on this one. First set in contention for worst at Dick's. Second set in contention for best. It's a swing.
Interesting.
It's a swing. It's a swing.
It's a good one.
Good swing.
Into it.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out this Piper, which is under 10 minutes and really, really good. Piper has a way of, covering a lot of ground in a really short amount of time. Like a 20-minute Piper is an exceptionally rare occurrence. I don't know off the top of my head how many times that's even happened. But it's a song that gets there and gets there quick. And just this version like really, really blew me away with how much, because I'm going in, I'm looking, it's like, oh, it's 9 minutes or whatever. Like it'll be cool maybe, but it was really above average. I think it was a fantastic jam.
Yeah, it packs a punch in that little bit of time.
I just want to note that there have been 9 20-plus minute Pipers in
out of
Phish history.
185.
What was the last one?
6/19/2004 from Saratoga Springs, a show that we talked about in depth on this podcast and will never speak of again, apparently. But I brought some 2004 to the table, and it was not 2012. Let's say that 2012 was a year of rebirth, which is a good segue out of this. Look at how I did that.
Wow.
Well done, Brian.
Walking out of these shows, and I guess like this can get us into our takeaways, our big takeaways here as we're wrapping up here. Walking out of these shows, I know I had the sensation that Phish had, I said this at the start, they leveled up in a way that I did not expect, and it immediately sent a jolt of positive energy throughout the community. There was a lot of love and light over what had just happened, while also setting the table for expectations that we've all become accustomed to throughout the Phish community. And there are moments where people will go back to this as, well, they'll never be that good again, or why can't they do what they did here? I think the interesting thing about this run is that it showcases both intentionality, but also like the spark of the moment. And both of those things to me are what makes Phish so special. Is you never know when they're going to have a great show. You never know. They never know. They may plan for something and it may not turn out that way. Or you may anticipate something and it may not turn out that way. But when everything aligns, it's something like this weekend, and it's absolutely incredible. Do you guys have any thoughts on how this weekend changed the course of 3.0 for Phish?
I mean, it proved to us that Phish likes dicks. And kind of,
if nothing else.
This was the second time here, right? And there've been plenty of venues where they've come back, right? Nothing special about that.
Mm-hmm.
They made it special. And you knew to expect, if nothing else, that they were going to try to make it special next time. And
I think it was a real statement that, like, obviously along with the rest of the summer, that like they're still kicking. Like they're still a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not going to be phased by, a lackluster end to 2011, which, we don't know why that happened, but it happened. And then they came back in 2012 and really, raised the bar. And then they would continue to do so, at least jamming wise, over the next couple of years with some inconsistency. But then 2015, they really start to hit their stride again with playing stretches of consistently amazing shows. And I think that's something that they couldn't just flip on, after spending, the breakup apart and Trey going through getting clean and sober and everything. Like, I think it was going to take time. And so this was a real big step on the way back to, getting to the point where we can see 4, 5, 6, however many shows go by with like consistent levels of amazing playing without like, oh, that one kind of sucked.
That's exactly right, Ryan. I was as I mentioned at the beginning, I was taking time off from Fish, but I was still listening. But a lot of the shows were play it once, put it away. Wasn't interested in going back. Certainly not at that time. Then they got to this weekend here, in particular the first show, and I was like, okay, they've got it. And I knew it was going to take time for them to have it. I had to step away and let them take that time that they needed, and now we're all here. And it really did hinge to some degree on this and a few other nights ahead. But this was the sign that I was like, okay, we could keep listening.
To me, I think the reason or the thing that stands out to me the most about this summer is that they're having fun. And I think that they're working, like you said, with a lot of intentionality, Brian. They're thinking about in the beginning of the summer, playing lots of different songs, playing through their catalog, probably rehearsing a lot to do those songs, which didn't always make for the best shows, but that rehearsal time pays off. And that time working intentionally together and having fun together and making jokes. I mean, there were so many jokes throughout this whole summer that they shared with the audience. And that playful vibe, I think, really enabled them to recognize how much fun they have doing this together. And whenever you're having fun with people, you start to play better. They're listening more, they're taking time, they're taking risks. I think that really influenced the way that the summer went and led to this kind of peak at the end. And for them, probably felt pretty incredible after being out for a long time.
Do you guys think, just really quickly from Lon Memo's question here, do you think that this is still the best 3-day run of the 3.0, 4.0 era?
No.
I'm not sure I agree with that. But
I don't think so.
There
have been runs with, there have been runs with, I think better shows. Is there a run that has more of a lasting impact while being amazing? I don't know. I think that's a better question, but just in terms of quality of the shows and on a 3-day run, I think it's definitely been surpassed a fair number of times since.
When do you think it's been surpassed? Just out of curiosity.
Off the top of my head, I would say
I'd like it off the bottom, actually, please.
I would say Deer Creek 2021 is a 3-night run that I think is better than this run.
That's 4.0.
4.0.
Well, okay. I will take. I was talking about this on Twitter a little bit earlier,
I would look to
arguing
2013.
With Mr. Ranking Propaganda, but I would put Dick's 2017 above Dick's 2012, honestly, in terms of just the 3 shows. Like, I think Dick's 2017 is a more consistent 3 nights. The jams I think are better. Like, I would put the Carini from 9/1/17 above anything from 2012. I think that speaks to a little bit of my real love for late 3.0. But there's something about those shows as well, post Baker's Dozen, like also making a statement very different than 2012, but it's like, the Baker's Dozen wasn't just like an isolated thing. Like, we're going to keep going with this. We're going to keep going with this, free for all vibe that would only then expand. So I think that off the top of my head, I think Dick's 2016 even, maybe.
I think I would say we don't have to get into this now because we're already 90 plus minutes in this.
A little over.
For real. I got to make dinner for my kids soon.
I don't agree with your choices personally. We can talk about that elsewhere. I would say the only ones in contention are
Dick's 2017, 5 years on.
Magnaball, I think is the only run that compares to this, just in terms of
festival. Doesn't count. Take that right out.
Yeah.
Period.
I feel like it counts.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Okay.
There's a vibe of the festival.
Big X Fest factor.
Mexico 2019.
No.
People are going to hate
Mexico
that
doesn't count
opinion.
it doesn't count for anything. It's not stats.
People are going to hate that opinion.
It's
not the
arguably
stats.
not even real.
I think
kidding
based
about
on
that
what
a little bit.
I agree with you.
I'm
I
not
think
even sure
based on
that's
what
a
we're
place.
It's a soundstage.
I think based on what we're saying, as I'm thinking through it, I don't think that there's been a better 3-night run since the Dick's run. I think when you combine everything in terms of how the band was playing, when they weren't jamming, what they had to prove and what they did, what they rose up to the occasion to prove it, the fact that you get these three very different shows, the first of which is, I would say they hadn't played a show to this level since Nassau 03, and before that, Nassau 98. I don't think that they've played a better show than the Fuck Your Face show since then. And then on top of that, you get this light jam that just sets the bar for every peaking fish jam that you will get between 2012 and the end of the Baker's Dozen, and the sand jam that is almost like 10 years ahead of its time.
2 of the 6 sets are arguably not even in discussion here. And you think it's
Fair
the
point.
best 3-night
And
run.
yes, and
I do.
Like, come on.
I would take
I think
18 over 8:31:12 any day of the week.
I played that game for a while, and
I'd
then I
go
realized I was
Hampton
wrong.
18. I would
Oh.
go,
Yeah,
you know, I'm
Lovely
just saying.
3.0.
fall 2018. Woo.
Exactly.
I think here's the thing to your point, Jonathan, because it's a very good point, and I think that this is something that you will appreciate. It's very hard to play a 6-set 3-night run where every single set is on par with each other. Like, part of the joy of this
impossible.
is the flow, is the up and down. And so I think to that point, when you look at this run as a whole, you need those palate cleansing set 1 of night 2, set 1 of night 3, where you're not
the
there to
additional 30
hear
songs.
you're not there to hear them like experiment. You're there to hear a rock band who then experiments as well.
I might
Yes.
be, but
Maybe.
see, the real problem
God, I'm gonna
with
love
this
watching shows with you for
conversation
this right here.
is
I
that
cannot
we
wait.
are comparing things that cannot be compared.
True.
Ranking
True.
is a fool's game. As soon as
It's
you
a fair
really get
point.
into it, you lose.
It's a fair point. I think that the simplest way to say it is this was a
The
great
Ryan,
set.
the
a
importance
great,
is where it matters.
Mm.
Is it
This was a
important?
great-
Yes. Win.
Yeah, very.
that's it right there. This was an important run in an important time that still holds up its importance. And it's also the best 3-night run that the band has
Okay.
played.
You know what's
In
important? Because I
Brian's
think
catalog.
you know what's important because I think this is the longest episode of
After
the
Brian's
2012
comment, we're shutting this
retrospective
off.
so far, which is funny because we were talking about like 12 shows on some of the
Yeah,
other episodes, and this
18,
one is
one
3.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, like
There's so much to say about these shows. There were a couple of
Yeah.
those
Not even
shows
the
where we
best
could
year,
just be
though.
like,
So
True.
all right, Megan, can you tell us 2 things? 1,
Okay.
are we taking a break on Wednesday? And 2, when will you be back to host recaps?
Okay. Yes, we're taking a break on Wednesday. We think we gave you enough captivating content today.
last of the week.
let us know.
Yeah, last of the week. You could tell us. But later in the week, we've got a lot going on. We've got half of us are flying out to Dick's and are going to be super busy. But I am going to be holding down the fort. I'm going to be doing a recap on Saturday that recaps Thursday and Friday night. I've got some awesome guests coming to join me. And then I'm doing a recap on Monday, and I've got some great guests that'll be at the shows too. So the Monday recap we'll do Saturday and Sunday night. So make sure you come to that. We'll be back next Monday for our regular show at 4:30 for our big summer 22 recap. That'll probably be like 5 hours long.
Yeah. It's going to be a big day of podcasting for you, Megan.
Next
Got 2
Monday,
shows
we're-
in the afternoon and then the entire tour.
Next
I'm
Monday,
exhausted just thinking about this. It's like a day off for me. Jesus. what am I
next
doing?
Monday we're doing a night 4 recap. We'll do the 2022 on Wednesday.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. That's right.
Okay.
That's easier
Yeah.
for you.
Phew. Okay, good. That sounds a lot better. Yeah. So we're going to be busy. And I hope
gonna
everyone
be
has
busy.
fun at Dick's. Brian, Jonathan, will you
Yeah,
send
I'm
me
jealous.
a photo, please? I'm so jealous and happy.
Megan,
for
we'll
you
be
guys.
holding it down on the couch.
That's right,
Lots of
Ryan.
photos
Can't
will
wait.
come.
Okay, good.
All right. We'll see
Thank
all
you guys
soon.
so much for having me.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Ryan.
being
Ryan.
here, Ryan.
Always a
We love
pleasure.
having you. Come back soon.
Always a pleasure. I will.
Later, guys.